from a Kansas microburst flattening a wheat field and lifting a Chase SUV in seconds, to a South Dakota hail core that jumped the radar and sent 4-inch stones through glass. These are 5 moments where chasers kept filming until the storm took control. We start with the mesocyclone drop that flipped Eli and Jada's vehicle in seconds. It was May 28, 2017 in western Kansas when field researcher Eli Grant, 38, and new chaser Jada Moreno, 27, eased their SUV onto a wheat field turnout beneath the rotating base of a classic supercell. The storm had been maturing for hours, rising from scattered cumulus towers into one of the cleanest, most structurally organized updrafts of the season. Eli had spent more than a decade analyzing the point at which rotation aloft begins influencing surface winds, a transition best observed directly beneath the mesocyclone, a position only experienced chasers were willing to take. Jada, who joined him that spring to produce educational storm footage, needed an unobstructed view of the storm's motion for her rotation sequences, and this supercell offered near-ideal conditions. A broad, sculpted updraft base, smooth stacked striations, and a textbook wall cloud drifting steadily overhead. For both research and filming, it appeared to be the perfect setup. By midday, the supercell had become the focal point for dozens of chasers spread across county roads. Eli and Jada deliberately positioned themselves away from the crowd to avoid blocked escape routes.
That's how I wanted it. No traffic, no distractions, just us in the storm.
They stopped beside a wide wheat field, flat, unobstructed, and offering a complete view of the mesocyclone above. Their SUV had roof-mounted cameras recording continuous footage of the rotating base. At the surface, the wind felt steady. The wheat bent rhythmically in long, smooth waves. The storm's main downdraft was clearly offset to the west, and there were no signs of a tornado forming nearby. Eli noted that the storm looked like it was cycling, meaning one rotation area was weakening as another strengthened, a common but unpredictable behavior. Radars later confirmed this cycling phase. As the weakening mesocyclone lost strength, the storm began tightening a new circulation center, almost directly above where Eli and Jada had parked. They did not know that subtle pockets of dry air were entering the updraft region at mid-levels, one of the atmospheric conditions that can trigger microbursts. The atmosphere around them looked stable enough for filming. The storm was impressive, but nothing suggested it was about to produce a dangerous downdraft. The wheat field remained mostly still. No dust devils, no abrupt shifts in wind direction, no rising debris. To both of them, the environment felt typical for supercell documentation. A microburst forms when cold, dense air inside a storm collapses downward in a concentrated column. When this air reaches the ground, it explodes outward in all directions, producing winds strong enough to flatten crops, damage roofs, or flip heavy vehicles. Unlike tornadoes, microbursts are nearly invisible until they touch the surface, and they cannot be reliably predicted from visual cues alone. In supercells undergoing a cycling phase, these downdrafts can form beneath regions that look stable. The tightening rotation above Eli and Jada created an area of intense vertical motion. At mid-levels, dry air mixed into the storm, evaporating precipitation and cooling the air rapidly. This cooled air became denser and heavier. Once enough weight accumulated overhead, the column began to collapse downward. Because the base of the storm was rain-free where they stood, nothing visually hinted at the danger. The underside of the mesocyclone appeared smooth, gray, and slowly rotating. There were no curtains of falling rain and no descending funnel, but the storm was preparing a microburst, one that would descend directly onto the wheat field beside their truck. Meteorologists later explained that the microburst was unusual unusually tight and intense, possibly enhanced by the storm's cycling behavior. The collapsing air mass accelerated rapidly, hitting the ground with a force similar to a low-end tornado, but without the rotational component. This made the wind hit outward instead of spiraling. Eli and Jada were parked almost perfectly beneath the impact point. The dashcam captured the first clue. The wheat nearest the truck suddenly shifted direction, flattening outward in a circular pattern. Eli began to say something barely audible over the wind, but the sound cut off when the microburst touched down. Dust erupted upward as if the ground had exploded. The entire wheat field rippled outward in a shockwave. The storm's downward force hit the truck from above and to the left, lifting the driver's side tires off the ground. The SUV tilted sharply. A moment later, the full force of the downdraft struck. The dashcam view blurred as the vehicle rolled across the wheat field. The windshield shattered. Equipment hit the interior walls. The roof buckled on the third roll. When the SUV finally stopped, it was upside down and partially submerged in a ditch filled with runoff. The camera, still attached to the dashboard, recorded only muffled water sounds and the ticking of cooling metal. Jada died instantly from impact trauma during the rollover. Eli, pinned upside down by the collapsed frame, drowned in the standing water before help arrived. Meteorologists later analyzed the footage frame by frame. The perfect circular flattening of the wheat confirmed a concentrated microburst touchdown, and radar showed a sudden spike in downdraft strength directly beneath the cycling mesocyclone, a rare but known signature during storm reorganization. The SUV's rollover path matched the outward burst of the microburst, proving the storm wasn't forming a tornado there. It simply released a vertical column of air with overwhelming force. Their heavy chase vehicle, normally an advantage, offered no protection once the wind came from above. The event is now used in storm chasing safety courses as a reminder that under a supercell, danger doesn't always descend as a funnel. Sometimes it arrives as a silent, invisible collapse of air, strong enough to lift a vehicle and end everything in seconds. It was April 16, 2018, on the outer edge of a suburban neighborhood in northern Alabama, when 29-year-old storm-chasing vlogger Riley Dunn set up his camera for what he expected to be the best footage he'd ever captured for his growing YouTube channel. With just over 4,000 subscribers, Riley had built a modest audience of weather enthusiasts who enjoyed his commentary on severe storms, tornado risk setups, and roadside time lapses. He wasn't a professional meteorologist, just a dedicated hobbyist who wanted to document the power of weather up close. A rain-wrapped tornado had been confirmed a few towns over, but radar showed it tracking north of his position. Based on his maps and the storm's earlier movements, Riley believed he was parked at a safe offset, close enough to record the backside debris field forming behind the circulation, but far enough away to avoid the funnel itself. His truck sat in the driveway of a vacant home, facing a dense row of tall pines that separated the neighborhood from the forest beyond. He mounted the dash cam, checked the battery pack twice, and hit record. The setup looked ideal. The wind was steady, not chaotic. Sheets of rain swept across the street, but never reached the violent horizontal streaks he associated with core-level winds. The tree line blurred softly in the distance, bending but not ripping apart. Riley had filmed storms like this before, close enough to be dramatic but not so close that the truck shook violently. What he didn't know was that the tornado was entering a transition phase. Rain-wrapped tornadoes often hide structural changes inside walls of dense precipitation. Radar signatures become harder to interpret, and the storm can reorganize without visual clues. In this case, the tornado was beginning a subtle but critical left turn, one that would push its debris field directly towards the driveway where Riley sat filming. Inside the rain curtain, the tornado intensified unevenly. Later analysis would show that a narrow acceleration pocket, a zone where ground-level winds surged to extreme speeds, formed near the forest line. This pocket developed as the tornado skimmed the uneven terrain near the neighborhood. A shallow dip in the land funneled winds into a tighter space, forcing them to accelerate rapidly. These pockets are almost impossible to detect without radar paired with real-time velocity scans, tools Riley didn't have. As the tornado clipped the edge of the forest, the acceleration pocket made the wind behave like an engine pulling the world inward. Dead trees from past storms, old logs, and partially rotted branches loosened from the ground. Tornado dynamics don't simply lift objects, they drag them into rotation, accelerating them the way a slingshot accelerates a stone. In an EF2 to EF3 environment, heavy timber can reach lethal speeds even before it leaves the tree line. None of this was visible from the driveway. From Riley's perspective, the worst of the storm was still north. He focused his camera on the swaying pines and narrated that he was on the safe side of the hook, a line his viewers had heard many times before. The dashcam footage, later reviewed by investigators, begins calmly. Only steady rain, wind noise, and the blurry outline of trees bending in the distance. Then the tone shifts. The camera's auto exposure flickers as the tree line bows sharply left, then snaps upright. A few smaller branches fly across a yard 2 houses down. Riley mutters about the wind change and leans closer to the windshield, trying to determine if the inflow is strengthening. Seconds later, the trees in the forest jerked sideways all at once, a sign not of rotation but of horizontal debris flow. A dark shape moved through the rain wall. Riley's dashcam captured only a half-second shadow before impact. An 8-foot log, hardened by moisture and ripped from the forest floor, shot through the passenger side of the truck at extreme velocity. The sound was a single concussive blow, metal, glass, and wood collapsing in the same instant. The camera jolted sideways, slammed against the dashboard, and recorded only distorted audio as wind and debris hammered the vehicle. The log struck Riley directly. Investigators later confirmed the cause of death as blunt force trauma from high-velocity debris impact. The truck shifted backward several feet as additional debris hit the hood, but the tornado did not fully overturn the vehicle. The danger had come not from the funnel, but from the projectiles it launched. Investigators later determined the tornado had shifted only a few hundred yards, just enough for its debris corridor to sweep across the driveway where Riley was parked. Logs driven deep into the ground showed impact speeds far higher than expected for an EF2 to EF3 storm. After reviewing the dashcam and damage pattern, officials updated safety advisories stressing that rain-wrapped tornadoes can project deadly debris well beyond the visible circulation. Riley's final footage soon circulated among storm-chasing groups, becoming a stark reminder that in severe weather, the greatest danger is often the part you never see coming. It was May 14th, 2018, along the thin barrier islands of the Outer Banks, North Carolina, when veteran storm chaser Marcus Ellery, 44, and aspiring storm photographer Lily Tran, 19, drove out to document the early bands of a strengthening coastal cyclone. The storm was still offshore, rotating slowly over warm Atlantic water, and both believed they had hours before landfall conditions became dangerous. Marcus had chased hurricanes for nearly 20 years. He knew the inlets, the fragile dune lines, and the way water behaved around the narrow roads that stitched the islands together. Lily had joined him that spring, hoping to build a portfolio of storm photography, moody skies, wind-bent grasses, and the kind of dramatic footage that could grow her small online following. They weren't there to intercept peak winds. Their plan was modest: capture the pre-landfall environment and the early storm surge behavior, a signature feature of the Outer Banks, where water often rises and retreats long before a cyclone officially arrives. By mid-afternoon, the sky had darkened into layered shades of blue-gray, The wind came in long, steady gusts that rattled street signs and whipped sand across Highway 12. The ocean, normally loud and rhythmic, had taken on a deeper roar, broad, sustained, and unnervingly uniform. Marcus parked their SUV along a raised section of road near Ocracoke Inlet, an area known for wide views and easy photography. The marshland on the sound side lay only a few feet below the roadway, separated by a thin guardrail and patches of tall cordgrass. Water levels were already creeping higher than normal, but still manageable. Lily set up her tripod, adjusting her camera settings to capture the contrast between the storm bands and the last hints of sunlight filtering through the clouds. She recorded short clips describing the low, fast-moving clouds and the way the dunes rippled under the incoming winds. Everything felt tense but controlled, an environment Marcus had navigated dozens of times before. The winds were strong but steady, the tides high but not unusual for a pre-landfall cyclone. From their vantage point, the storm looked like it was still hours away from any major shift. But out over the water, the cyclone was reorganizing in ways neither of them could see. Offshore buoys recorded a rapid pressure drop, and weather radar showed a developing feeder band curving inland. That band was aimed directly at the narrow basin near Ocracoke, one of the few places where rising water can funnel into a concentrated surge channel. This combination, pressure-driven displacement and bowl-shaped terrain, creates one of the deadliest coastal hazards, a sudden corridor-style storm surge capable of overtaking land in seconds. The first warning didn't come from the ocean at all. It came from behind them, from the sound side. A deep, grinding noise rolled across the marsh, low and constant. Unlike wind or thunder, Lily paused mid-shot and glanced over her shoulder. Marcus stepped towards the guardrail, watching the tall marsh grass bow in slow, synchronized ripples as though pushed by an unseen force. Then the water began to recede, only a small amount at first, an inch or two slipping backward into the grass, then several inches more. The marsh looked as if it were inhaling, drawing water away from the shore. Veteran chasers know what this means. When water pulls back during an active cyclone, it is gathering strength somewhere else. They had no time to reposition. The surge hit them in a single devastating pulse. A solid sheet of water burst out of the marsh and slammed across the lower roadway. It wasn't a wave. There was no crest, no crash, just a fast-moving wall that shoved everything in its path.
Lily, get back!
The SUV rocked violently as water struck the rear tires. Lily staggered backward as her tripod toppled into the flow. Marcus shouted for her to get inside, but the water was already rising, tugging at their legs with a suction-like force that made each step harder than the last. A second surge followed almost immediately, larger, faster, filled with debris.
Lily, get back!
Water swept across the road in a rolling mass, swallowing the asphalt and erasing the guardrail beneath it. The SUV lifted briefly, then drifted sideways as the current pushed it offline. Lily grabbed the door handle, trying to climb inside, but the current pulled her off her center of gravity. In one motion, the rushing water swept her into the marsh. Marcus lunged toward her, but the surge overtook him as well, rising to his waist and dragging him downstream before he could stabilize his footing. A security camera mounted on a nearby vacation home captured only silhouettes, two figures struggling as the water overtook the road before both disappeared into the churning gray.
Keep your footing! Hang on to the rail!
Storm surge in narrow basins behaves unlike any other form of flooding. It arrives as a moving wall, driven by wind speed, air pressure collapse, and terrain. Once a person loses footing, recovery becomes almost impossible. The current accelerates, debris strikes from unpredictable angles, and water depth increases so rapidly that escape routes vanish in seconds. Within minutes, that entire stretch of Highway 12 lay underwater, silent, opaque, and unreachable. leaving no trace of the road that had been dry only moments before. Search teams located Marcus and Lily the next morning, nearly a mile inland, carried there by the retreating surge. Both died from drowning caused by rapid coastal inundation and the force of debris-filled water moving through the marsh. Investigators later confirmed that a narrow surge channel had formed as the cyclone's feeder band funneled water into the basin at extreme speed, a rise so sudden that forecast models hadn't identified the exact zone at risk. Emergency managers revised local warning protocols afterward, stressing that storm surge can strike well before landfall and that even trained chasers should avoid low-lying basins during sharp pressure drops. Lily's camera was recovered near a tangle of reeds. The memory card survived, and her final frame, a darkening sky over a restless marsh, became a quiet reminder shared among storm photographers.
Keep your footing. Hang on to the rail.
Hey everyone, it's Nora. We're out in central Nebraska right now, June 4th.
It was June 4th, 2018, across the flat, open farmland of central Nebraska, when what should have been a simple time-lapse session turned into a lesson in how unpredictable clear air convection can be long before a storm even forms. The afternoon sky looked harmless, an expanse of calm blue broken only by towering cumulus clouds beginning their slow climb into the upper atmosphere. But far above the quiet fields, the air was already shifting in subtle, powerful ways no one on the ground could see. Nora Ellman, 26, had built a small but dedicated following, about 5,000 viewers who watched her document the earliest phases of storm development. While most chasers pursued tornadoes or lightning, she focused on the quiet first stage of convection, capturing the storm before the storm in long, detailed time lapses. She and her assistant, 33-year-old Joel Stanton, had been crossing the plains for weeks. That afternoon, they stopped beside a broad, dry field marked by an aging, rust-bowed windmill. Its weathered frame and slow-turning blades made the perfect foreground for Nora's rising cloud towers, a visual contrast she used often in her videos. Nothing overhead looked threatening. The sky was mostly blue, except for the developing cumulus tower growing rapidly to the west. Nora set up her tripod, leveled the camera, and began recording the slow upward build of the cloud, layer by layer. Clear air convection is often misunderstood because it lacks the visual cues people associate with dangerous weather. There is no thunder, no lightning, no obvious rotation. But the vertical motion inside those early towers can generate powerful pockets of inflow and outflow winds at ground level, wind shifts that occur well before a storm matures. Joel walked a short distance away to measure surface winds with their handheld anemometer. The readings were light at first, barely above a normal prairie breeze, but the numbers began climbing within minutes. Dust started lifting from the field, forming swirling eddies that weren't connected to any visible storm above. The early signs were subtle, whispers of instability that neither of them recognized as an immediate threat. Explosive clear air convection can produce sudden downdrafts long before rainfall or thunder exists. As a towering cumulus grows rapidly, the air near the cloud base cools and descends in tight, fast-moving pulses. These downbursts can strike the ground and spread outward unexpectedly, creating sudden wind shifts strong enough to topple weak structures. The convective tower Nora was filming was climbing aggressively, thousands of feet upward in minutes. Satellite imagery later revealed intense vertical development, with cold cloud tops forming much faster than forecast models had predicted. This rapid ascent created a localized pressure imbalance beneath the tower. Warm air rushed inward from the surrounding fields, feeding the updraft, while a small but powerful downdraft began forming along its edge. The downdraft hit the ground several miles west of their location and spread outward across the flat plains in a widening circle. Surface winds that had been calm just minutes earlier now accelerated sharply. These winds traveled unobstructed across farmland and straight toward the old windmill where Nora and Joel were set up. The windmill's structure had been deteriorating for years. Its bolts were corroded, one brace on the lower tower had cracked, and the wooden platform at the top had warped from decades of storms. Under normal prairie wind, the structure held. Under sudden, concentrated force, it would not. As the gust front approached, Nora's time-lapse camera captured dust rising in sheets from the field. The windmill blades began spinning faster, not violently but erratically, as the structure absorbed the first wave of pressure. A faint groaning noise came from the metal tower, barely audible over the wind. Neither Nora nor Joel recognized the warning signs for what they were: a downburst from explosive convection, strong enough to topple a weakened structure. Nora adjusted the camera lens, leaning slightly toward the tripod. Joel took a step closer to the windmill to gauge the wind direction. The dust around them surged upward, rising in a circular pattern typical of downburst impact. The windmill tower flexed once, sharp enough to shift its shadow on the ground. The next pulse of air hit harder. A loud snap echoed across the empty field as the tower's lower brace gave way. The top half of the windmill leaned forward, then broke completely at the base. The camera recorded the shadow stretching across the dirt, growing wider and darker as the structure fell. Nora looked up only a moment before impact. Joel turned at the sound but had no time to react. The windmill crashed down onto both of them with full force, its metal frame collapsing under its own weight and striking them before they could step clear. The camera shook violently as debris hit the ground nearby, but continued recording for several seconds before the wind shifted it onto its side. The downburst continued for less than a minute, then dissipated as quickly as it had formed, leaving the field silent except for the faint ticking of the windmill blades still spinning on the ground. When emergency crews arrived, they found the fallen windmill twisted across the dirt and both victims beneath the wreckage. Investigators later determined that the windmill had been severely weakened by age, and the sudden downdraft delivered wind speeds far beyond what the structure could withstand. Meteorologists who reviewed Nora's footage identified classic signs of explosive, clear air convection, rapid cloud growth, shifting inflow, and a brief but powerful downdraft pulse that hit the ground without visual warning. The deaths were ruled accidental, caused by structural collapse under extreme, storm-generated wind conditions. Their recovered footage is now used in safety trainings as a reminder that the most dangerous winds don't always come from visible storms. Some arrive long before a storm even exists. It was July 6th, 2018, on a quiet back road in eastern South Dakota, where the horizon sat heavy under a growing supercell. The storm had developed a cold, blue-green tint, an early signal that large hail was forming aloft, and radar was already showing strong reflectivity in the vault region. Derek Leland, 39, was there for one reason: to document the hailfall before it reached the nearby farming communities. He knew this storm had the potential to drop stones measuring 3 inches or more, and he wanted the rare ground-level footage that most chasers never attempt to capture.
That's the updraft right there, moving away from it.
Derek wasn't a tornado chaser. He was a hail specialist. He spent years studying how stones formed, how they layered during multiple updraft cycles, and how their fall speed changed as a storm reorganized. His field setups were technical and methodical. Tripods arranged with precise angles, calibrated microphones for impact recordings, and roof-mounted cameras aimed directly into the inflow sector. Working alongside him was Mina Hart, 29, his driver and spotter. She joined him earlier that spring and quickly became essential to the operation. Mina managed the road network, watched radar trends, and monitored the storm's slow drift across the prairie while Derek focused entirely on his instruments. Their target that evening, the same supercell already producing baseball-sized hail to the north, was showing signs of strengthening. Derek believed the next cycle could produce even larger stones, and if they positioned themselves on the storm's safe flank, they could capture rare, valuable data before the core shifted. Instead of parking in an exposed driveway or roadway, Mina positioned their SUV beneath an abandoned equipment awning on a rural property. The structure had a high metal roof supported by 4 steel posts, old but sturdy. Chasers sometimes used similar structures for temporary shelter from moderate hail, since they allowed cameras to continue recording without exposing the windshield to direct hits. Their escape route was a dirt service lane running behind the property and reconnecting to a county road. Everything about their setup appeared controlled. Ahead of them, the sky carried the classic greenish tint associated with strong hail cores. Lightning spread across the anvil in branching sheets. The storm's rotation remained steady but distant. Their concern was not the mesocyclone, but the hail shaft positioned well to the northwest. What neither of them could see was the new updraft forming on the storm's southern flank, a structural reorganization that would pull the hail mass directly toward them. Inside a supercell, hail does not fall straight downward. It is suspended and redirected by rotating air currents inside the updraft. When the storm cycles, building a new updraft tower, those currents shift. Meteorologists call this hail core migration, and it can relocate the heaviest hail several miles in minutes. Mina noticed subtle changes first. The inflow wind changed direction, drawing from the east instead of the southeast. The core on radar widened slightly, and the anvil lightning became more frequent across the vault region. None of these signs alone indicated danger, but together they hinted at a structural shift inside the storm. Derek's roof-mounted side camera recorded the first falling stones. Small hail scattered, nothing unusual. The sound on the metal awning was light, rapid ticks, not impacts. Derek adjusted the exposure, narrating the shift in wind. Then the stones increased. Golf ball hail started striking the metal roof with sharp, echoing blows. A few bounced beneath the awning and tapped the SUV's tires. Mina called out the radar update. The core had expanded southeast. They began preparing to reposition. Before they could reposition, the hail jumped to baseball-sized stones. Impacts dented the metal roof, shaking loose rust as the awning roared under the barrage. The sound shifted into the deep, vibrating tone that signals giant hail reaching destructive velocity. Derek looked up just as a grapefruit-sized stone punched through the sheet metal. More followed in rapid succession. Mina started the engine to reverse down the dirt lane, but the hail core had already overtaken them. Stones 4 inches across fell at speeds over 100 miles per hour, tearing through weakened panels and denting the SUV's roof inward. One struck the passenger window, cracking it. Seconds later, a nearly 5-inch stone dropped through an opening in the roof and hit Derek as he leaned toward the dashboard camera. He collapsed immediately, the dash cam capturing his sudden fall as hail continued to break through the structure. Mina attempted to drive out, shouting for Derek, but hailstones continued punching through the awning, striking the truck at random angles. One stone, traveling at extreme velocity, entered through the already fractured driver's side window and hit her before she could reach the dirt lane. She collapsed against the door. The SUV continued rolling backward a few feet, guided only by momentum until the engine stalled under repeated impacts. The dash cam image warped as a hailstone struck the lens directly, distorting the footage into streaks of white before it cut out entirely. Investigators later confirmed that a new updraft pulse, shown on radar as a bounded weak echo region, had forced the hail core to shift southeast far faster than expected. The aged awning collapsed under repeated impacts from giant hail, and the cause of death was ruled blunt force trauma from high-velocity stones. Regional chase groups updated their safety guidelines, noting how rapidly hail cores can migrate and how overhead structures offer no real protection once large hail begins falling. Derek's final footage is now used in training programs as a reminder that when a supercell reorganizes, the hail rarely falls where it did before. Thank you for watching. Click subscribe for more interesting videos.